Hello and welcome everybody. Tonight we're going to be talking about an introduction to Adobe Creative Cloud. My name is Dan Rodney and welcome to this Noble Desktop free seminar. This live stream is going to be going over all things that are kind of Creative Cloud related. So we're going to be going into things like how to get the Adobe Creative Cloud, choosing the right plan and how much it will cost, and diving into all the things that you get. There's a lot of benefits in the Creative Cloud, some of which people don't realize that they get. And so we want to help you maximize your use of the Creative Cloud and make sure you tap into all the features that it has to offer, all the things you're paying for. We'll go through all the different things that the various apps can do. So things that you should be aware of if you're getting the full Creative Cloud app plan where you're getting all the apps, what are all the apps? What do they do? And, obviously you need to learn how to use those, but just to make sure that you understand what each of those apps do and why you might want to learn how to use those. And of course, ways to learn those various apps. For any of you who are attending live, we are recording tonight's session. The link here to this presentation, once again, I'm going to put a link to this in the chat. For any of you who are watching the recording of this, if you're watching it online, down in the video description down below, there should be a link to this presentation. It's nobledesktop.com/presentation/Adobe-Creative-Cloud. You don't need that ending part right there. And so as you're using this little set of slides here, you can use your arrow keys to go back and forth between the slides. You can also, there are little arrows that you can click down here as well if you want, but you can use your arrow keys, left and right arrow keys. And if you're on a touch screen, you can swipe across as well to advance through these slides. And lots of useful information that we're going to have in here and go through. Before we dive in here to this very first topic, just want to let you know. So if you're not familiar with what Noble Desktop is, we are a training center in New York City. We teach a lot of these Adobe Creative Cloud applications. And so we wanted to talk about all the things related to Creative Cloud, just so that you're fully aware of what you can do with it and how you can take advantage of the Creative Cloud if you're interested. There's lots of different areas that you can dive into. So let's get started here. So how do we get Creative Cloud? You have to choose the right plan. It is a subscription plan. It's a monthly cost for grading Creative Cloud. And so you can kind of pick and choose the parts that you want. If you want the whole thing, the whole kit and caboodle, the entire Creative Cloud, you can get over 20 apps, which is going to include Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, InDesign, Premiere Pro, After Effects. There's a bunch of different apps that are built into Creative Cloud, of which we're going to be talking about what those different apps do, like what is Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, Premiere Pro, After Effects, like what do all those do? We'll talk about that in a little bit. So if you want them all, you can get them all with one plan. Or if you want just some things, like for example, if you're a photographer or a videographer, well, maybe more photography related. If you're interested in photography, you might want Photoshop and Lightroom, either the new Lightroom or the older Lightroom Classic, which is what a lot of photographers use. And you get a limited photography plan where you just get the apps that you need and you don't overpay for the apps that you don't need. And then you can also get just one individual app. So for example, for UI or UX designers that might be interested in Adobe XD, you could just get Adobe XD. Or if you're an editor and you're using Adobe InCopy, you could just get an individual app with just Adobe InCopy, which happens to be the cheapest of all the Adobe apps that they offer. So it's up to you as to figuring out which apps you want to learn and which apps you're going to use, and then choosing the right plan for what you need. As far as seeing all those plans, we have a link here to check out all the plans and the pricing. So if I click on that link right there, it opens up a new tab and we can compare. Now, if you're in another country, keep in mind that this pricing that I have is as of today, January 7th, 2021. And so if you're watching this in the future, pricing might change. And if you're in a different country, pricing, of course, could be different. So I'm in the United States, and so I'm seeing US pricing. So you have that you can look at, for example, like you can check out all the apps and everything that you can do. They do start out here with their photography plan, but then they show things like the all apps plan. Keep in mind that the pricing that they have here is a monthly pricing with the assumption that you're going to have it for a year. So there is a year commitment. If you're going to pay month to month, then it's a higher monthly cost, but there is no commitment. You can just do a month to month subscription. So all this pricing assumes that you're going to commit to a year. And then after that year, it's up to you if you want to renew for another year or not. But this would be the monthly price, assuming that you're going for a year subscription there. So you can go for all the apps where you get everything. For, in this case, the US is $53. If you just want a single app, a lot of those apps are either somewhere between $10 or $21 a month. The one exception, as far as kind of a cheaper plan, is the photography plan. And I linked to this back on this page too, just so you can directly go there in case you're interested in that photography plan. That starts as low as $10 a month. And it's interesting because when you look at some of the other apps, like for example, if you look at Illustrator, $21 a month, InDesign, $21 a month, and Photoshop and Lightroom together are only 10. So it's actually quite a good deal compared to the other individual apps things, because you get more than one app and it's the $10. So there are a couple of photography plans if you're interested in that. If you just want the new version of Lightroom, where it requires you to store all your photos in the cloud, that's $10 a month. The photography plan, I think, is actually what a lot of people would be interested in, where you get a little less storage than this, but it doesn't require you to put all your photos in the cloud. You can store them locally, and you get the new and older Lightroom, which I use the older Lightroom, the Lightroom Classic, because that allows me to store files on my computer and not force me to go and store everything in the cloud like the new Lightroom does. So a lot of pro photographers like to store them themselves and not be storing all their photos in the cloud. So for $10 a month, you're going to get the Lightroom Classic, which is my preferred version, and also Photoshop. And so you get Photoshop and Lightroom for $10 a month. And so that's one of the most affordable Creative Cloud plans if you are into Photoshop and Lightroom. And yeah, you can get some other apps in here, like if you need Adobe XD, also $10 a month as well. The cheapest of all of these is actually InCopy. This is used for editors that are working with Adobe InDesign. That is $5 a month, and that will actually come into play because with all of these plans you get certain things, and for example, Adobe Fonts is one of those things that you get with all of them. So it's actually the cheapest way to get Adobe Fonts, which we'll go over in just a little bit. So I'm not going to go through the pricing for every single one. You can browse through the pricing here yourself. If you happen to be a student or a teacher, you do get a discount on this. So as long as you are going to a high school or college level type educational experience, then those high school or college levels, they get a discount. So unfortunately, professional students like schools like us, even though we're an Adobe authorized training center, our students are considered professionals, so they don't offer our students a discount. So you do have to be like a high school or college student type person to get that kind of discount, like a school or university type discount. So we've got those links there for all the plans. So you really just have to decide which apps you need to learn, and then go with that. So pretty much for the most part, if you just want one app, probably it's the most affordable to go with that single app. If you're a photographer, the photography plan is the best way to go. If you're going to start to put in like 2 or 3 apps, probably it's going to be that the all apps plan is going to be cheaper, because by the time you put in, let's say, Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, you're at the all apps plan. So you may as well just get the all apps plan. So if you just want one, you can probably just get that one. If you want 2 or 3, you're probably just going to go for the all apps at that point. All right. So a couple things. You can use this across multiple computers. So you can log into your Creative Cloud account on 2 different computers at the same time. It doesn't matter whether they are Mac or PC, so it can be either one, and it can be a mixture. Like if you have a PC laptop and at home you have a Mac, it doesn't matter. So it can be Mac or PC, and you can log into both at the same time. So let's say, on your laptop, you want to be able to use it when you're away from your home, but then you also want to leave yourself logged in at home so that when you're at home, you can be using it on your home computer. And then when you leave and you go on your laptop, you can have it on the laptop. You don't have to continually sign in and out. You can just stay signed in with those two computers. If you ever go to sign in with a third computer, it'll offer to log you out of some previous computer. So you can use it on multiple computers. Just you can only be signed into two at the same time, but you can sign out of one and sign into another one if you need to. So if you have, like, let's say you have a home and work computer and a laptop for in between, you just won't be able to be signed in to all three all at the same time. So you will need to sign out of one of those accounts and sign back in. But platforms don't matter anymore, Mac or PC, and you can sign into multiple computers to use it. It's not meant to be used by multiple people. It's meant to be that you as a user are using it across two of your computers, like a home and a laptop, for example. Or if you, in your job, if you have your job computer and your laptop, and because you travel, it could be on both of those. So what do you get for your membership? It's not just the apps. You actually get other things. And this is one of the reasons why we wanted to do this seminar, is to really show off all the different things. And some of this stuff people don't realize you get as part of the Creative Cloud. So take advantage of what you're paying for and use your subscription to its full extent. So of course you get the Creative Cloud apps. So you're going to get things like Photoshop, Illustrator, After Effects, whichever apps you choose to get as part of your Creative Cloud. If you get the all apps plan, you get them all. Or otherwise, if you choose to just get one app or two apps, you'll just get those. But you're going to get some Creative Cloud apps. You have to get at least one app to get the Creative Cloud. So you're going to have at least a minimum of one app. First of all, it's important to understand that these are not web apps. I know that cloud is in the name, and that sometimes clouds people understanding about this, but these are not web apps. These are the same apps that we've been using for decades, if they've been around for that long. But they used to be desktop apps. They're still desktop apps. They get installed on your Mac or PC, so they're not accessed via a web browser or anything. You do download them, you install them on your Mac or PC. For most of these apps, if you need to disconnect from the internet and use them, that's fine. Now, some features are going to require internet access to use. We'll talk later about some of those features. So just like anything, some features just require an internet connection. But for the most part, like if you're firing up Photoshop and you're retouching photos, you don't need to be connected to the internet to do that. So they're not web apps. They don't require internet connections. They are downloaded and installed on your Mac or PC. And the way that you do that is using the Creative Cloud desktop app. So if you click this link here, this takes you to download the Creative Cloud desktop application. So that is your first stop when you're getting started with Creative Cloud. It lives on the Mac up here in your menu bar. So you're going to have a little icon here. And on Windows, there'll be a shortcut down at the bottom right of your screen. In like the little shortcut tray, there'll be a shortcut to the Creative Cloud app. You can also find it in your list of applications. So if you go into your applications on the Mac, or on Windows, if you go into your start menu and go in and find, you're looking for Adobe Creative Cloud, you'll find that app. So I have it running here. And when you look in here, over here on the left, you can choose which apps you're going to install. So I can click on all apps. Now I have the all apps subscription, and I have a bunch of these apps installed because I actually use a bunch of the different apps. But you will see in here available in your subscription. So these are the ones that you have gotten as part of your subscription. So if you got a subscription to just one app, then you'll see one app only. If you have the all apps, then you'll see all of them. If you have the photography plan, you'll just see Lightroom, Classic, and Photoshop. You would see those. Also, you do get Adobe Bridge. That's kind of a free app that comes with all of them. Adobe Bridge is like a file browser. It's kind of like a graphic file browser that allows you to go in and view the files that are on your computer in kind of a graphical way, kind of like your desktop, but with a more kind of design kind of focus, of a graphic kind of focus. So you get that. So you want to head over to your Creative Cloud app that you've downloaded and installed. The first time you launch it, it's going to have you sign into your account so that it knows which apps you can install. And then you just click install and it installs the app. And then once it's installed, it lives on your computer. Any updates that become available, they show up here. You'll get a notification that'll come up on your screen. And if you go over here to updates, you'll see right now I don't have any updates available. But updates are included, so you don't have to pay for upgrades. As long as you have your subscription, you have the availability to use the apps in your subscription, and you also get all the updates that are available. So every once in a while, they're going to put out updates. Every year they put out a kind of a big update around, I think it's in November when they do Adobe Max, which is their big conference that they do each year. And they put out a big major release for like the next year. So for example, Illustrator, InDesign, Photoshop 2021 came out in November, and that was released at Adobe Max. So you get those updates included as part of your subscription that you have. So that's where you get your apps as part of that desktop application. And once they're installed, then you don't have to be connected to the internet. You do have to connect to the internet every, I think 30 days for it to just check in to make sure that you've been paying for your subscription. But for the most part, most of these apps don't have to have some sort of constant connection to the internet to work because they are a desktop app. Now, they do have mobile apps. So they've actually been bringing more and more apps to, for example, the iPad. So Photoshop and Illustrator have now been made for the iPad. Now, don't expect these to be full versions exactly like the desktop versions. They are initial starting versions where they're starting out Photoshop and Illustrator on the iPad. They do have quite a few features, but they are not as fully developed as their desktop equivalents. So just keep that in mind, that there might be features that you can only do on the desktop in a Mac or a PC, and you won't be able to do everything on Photoshop or Illustrator for an iPad. Some apps will have companion apps like viewer apps. For example, with Adobe XD, there's a companion viewer app where you can see your design on your mobile phone while you're designing on your Mac or PC. So sometimes it's not the same exact app, it's just a companion for it. But there are a bunch of mobile apps that go with this that kind of round out your subscription. So if you do have an iPad or like, for example, the Adobe XD app, that's for your iPhone or Android, you can go get those on your device's app store. So there are mobile apps that you can get in addition to your desktop apps. If you have been using Adobe products before the Creative Cloud, it used to be called the Creative Suite. Back before it was called the Creative Cloud, that was when you purchased a continual license where you did a one-time purchase and then you had it for as long as you wanted, but you didn't get any updates and you weren't getting cloud services. Just think of the Creative Cloud apps as just the next version of the Creative Suite apps. So they're still installed on your computer. They're just, instead of CS 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, now they're just called Creative Cloud. So it's just the new versions of the Creative Suite. So the Creative Suite turned into the Creative Cloud. They changed the name, but it's the same fundamental thing, but they added additional things. So it's kind of Creative Suite plus additional stuff, some of which are cloud hosted services here. So for example, Adobe Fonts. So Adobe Fonts is a service that's included with all of your Creative Cloud plans. Every single Creative Cloud plan includes Adobe Fonts. And so there are thousands of fonts on Adobe Fonts, and you can use these. So if I click on here to go over here, you can use all of these fonts that are here. So let's say I go, let's just browse the fonts. Almost 2,000 fonts on here, and they keep adding fonts as time goes on. Tons of different fonts. So let's say you're looking for some cursive fonts. So you can go in here and let's say you like that font. So you can check out that font. And assuming you're signed in to your Creative Cloud account, you just click activate. And then any of the computers where you're signed into Creative Cloud, it'll download that font onto all of your computers. And whenever you sign in to a new computer, all of the fonts that are part of your Creative Cloud account, they all get synced to that new computer. So that's one of the nice things about having a Creative Cloud account. When you go to that desktop app and you sign in, and then all your fonts kind of come along with you. So I can actually go over here to F over here for fonts. and I can see all of the fonts that are activated, and they are all associated with my account. So I sign in to my account, all those fonts get activated, and that's quite nice. So they travel with my account. And so all these fonts are included as part of your Creative Cloud subscription. If you were to separately purchase these fonts, if you could separately purchase them, they would be worth thousands of dollars by themselves. I say if you could purchase them separately because some fonts are only licensed through Adobe Fonts. For example, these fonts, they can be used for any purpose. They can be used for desktop application designing in any app. They're installed on your Mac or PC. They're available for all applications. So whether it's Adobe apps or Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Sketch, any kind of app that's on your computer, they all get access to these fonts, and also websites. So you can use these fonts on your live actual website. So you can use these for basically any purpose for both personal and professional use. Adobe makes professional programs. So these are all licensed for professional use. So you can use them in print, you can use them in web, you can use them in ebooks, you can use them in all different purposes. And so some of the things like web usage, some of these fonts are only licensed through Adobe Fonts and they're not found anywhere else. So sometimes you have to get them through here. Now, some of these fonts are free fonts that are available on other websites. So some of these are freely available elsewhere, but some of these are paid fonts that you can purchase elsewhere for potentially hundreds of dollars per family. And some of them can only be found here. So it is a valuable thing that you get as part of your Creative Cloud subscription. So it's definitely good to know of. And you can use it in any app on your computer, not just Adobe apps. And you can use it professional, personal, whatever you want, print, web, digital designs. You're creating stuff for social media. You can use it for any purpose. If you purchase it separately, it would be very expensive to purchase all of those fonts. So don't waste your access. If you're getting Creative Cloud, take advantage of all these Adobe fonts that you're getting. Now, if somebody only wants Adobe fonts, maybe there's a typeface that you love, and maybe you do PowerPoint stuff, and you don't need the whole Creative Cloud, you just want access to Adobe fonts because you like the font library, you could get the InCopy plan. Remember how I said earlier that InCopy was the cheapest single app plan. So in US dollars, it's $4.99 a month. And that's the cheapest way to get Adobe Fonts because Adobe Fonts are included with every Creative Cloud plan. And if you check out the plans, you'll notice when you look at the fine print. So if I go back, let me actually jump back over to here. When you look at the details, when you look at plan and pricing details, you'll see all the stuff that you get. And they'll say that it includes things like Adobe Portfolio, which I'll be mentioning in a moment. And it says Adobe Fonts. And so you'll notice that Adobe Fonts is included with every single one. So that will be there for all of them. All right, so let me just bench. I'm hitting escape here, by the way, to kind of jump out and get a bird's eye view of all of these. And so let me just jump back over to Adobe Fonts. All right, so valuable thing that you get as part of your Creative Cloud subscription. Adobe Portfolio. That was mentioned just a moment ago in that list of features that are included. Another thing a lot of people don't realize it's part of Creative Cloud is Adobe Portfolio. So if you're a designer and you want to have a portfolio, they do the web hosting for you if you want. So they can include the hosting. You can have as many pages on there as you want. And you will have to purchase the domain name. A domain name is your .com, .net, .io, whatever kind of domain name you get. So that domain name, that's your web address. So you will have to purchase that separately. But assuming you have a domain name that you want to use, that you pay for, and domain names, they cost like 10 to 20 bucks a year. That's it. So they're not a very expensive thing, not per month, just $10 to $20 for an entire year for a custom domain name. And then you can, for your web hosting, use Adobe Portfolio. And so they'll create the whole website and you can create your pages. And especially for designers that don't want to learn how to do coding, if you don't want to learn how to use things like WordPress or something, you can build your portfolio through Adobe Portfolio. And so you can use your own domain name. You do have to purchase that separately. The web hosting itself through Adobe Portfolio, that's what's included. And if you're a photographer, you can use photos from Lightroom in your photography portfolio, and it integrates with Behance. So Behance, if you've never heard of it, it's kind of like Facebook for designers. It's like a social media platform for designers, or Instagram for designers, whatever you want to. It's a social media platform for designers. It's not exactly like every other platform, but it's where designers can post stuff. And so you can post projects, and people can see, they can follow you on there, kind of like you follow somebody on Twitter, and they can see work, and you can appreciate it. So if you like it, you give them a thumbs up, and this can be a place where people can put their work. And so it actually integrates with that. So when you upload things to Behance, that can be automatically integrated into your Adobe Portfolio website. So that's another feature that is included with your Creative Cloud. Then Adobe Stock. I'm not talking financial stock here. Adobe Stock, photos, videos, and audio. It'd be kind of cool if they gave you some Adobe Stock with it. So Adobe Stock is photos, video, music, audio, illustrations, design templates, all sorts of stock imagery. Now, this is related to it, but it is not included in your Creative Cloud. So that's why I wanted to talk about this. Adobe Stock is separate. It's related to Creative Cloud, but it is not included with your Creative Cloud. You can purchase a separate plan. They do give you some free photos, vectors, and videos. That's a new thing that they've recently offered, some free things. So that's free for everybody. But if you want Adobe Stock, that is a separate purchase that is not included in Creative Cloud. But you can check it out if you're looking for stock imagery, videos, audio, whatever it is. They do have stuff there. If you just want some free stuff, I gave a link here to the free stuff that you can get, and they do have some free stuff here available as well. But if you want that, that is a separate purchase, not included in Creative Cloud. So just wanted to specify that. They do often offer that when you sign up for Creative Cloud, they might give like a free initial offer or something. But just keep in mind that if you kind of start that I don't know how exactly they word it, because I haven't started my Creative Cloud subscription recently. I created it before Adobe Stock was out there. Just make sure that you know that even if you were starting some sort of initial trial, that it is a separate subscription, separate to Creative Cloud. So don't just accidentally make the mistake and not realize you were signing up for two different things. So Creative Cloud, different than the Adobe Stock. All right, so that's a separate thing. All right, so there are a variety of different cloud services that are included with your Creative Cloud. All the plans in Creative Cloud incorporate some storage. Some plans incorporate more storage than others, depends on the plan. And so when you think about that creative storage, how are we going to use that Creative Cloud storage? Most of your apps, I say most because for the most part it's true, but there are a couple that aren't, depending on whether you're paying for them or not. But in most apps, you can save files locally or to your Creative Cloud. Now, Creative Cloud, there's kind of two ways that you can save to Creative Cloud. Apps are now starting to save to Creative Cloud as like cloud documents, and cloud documents are a bit different than local documents. Sometimes they have special features. For example, collaboration. In Adobe XD, you have cloud documents. And in a cloud document, you get to do things like, if you've ever collaborated with somebody with Google Docs, where you can all be collaborating at the same time, editing different parts of the file, that's how Adobe XD can work with cloud documents. If you save things locally, it doesn't do that. So Creative Cloud can be those Creative Cloud app, those special files, those cloud files, or it could also just be a folder on your computer. And so using that folder that's just sitting on there on your computer, that folder can be thought of like Dropbox or Google Drive. And so it's just cloud storage that you can use, that you can access across all your computers that have Creative Cloud. So it can be thought of as like a syncing service, but it's not only that. When you think in addition to that, you think about these cloud documents that certain apps are doing. And now, like Photoshop has added cloud documents, Illustrator has added cloud documents. They're starting to enable certain features that can only work on cloud documents that can't work on local documents because they require the internet. So yes, you can still save files locally. You're not forced to use those. But at the same time, for some files, just because they're local, you might have limitations like collaboration. If you want to collaborate, you got to use the internet to do that, especially at this time when a lot of people are starting to work more from home. Collaboration is more important than ever. So that's where those cloud documents are going to be useful in helping people to collaborate. And so that all uses your cloud storage. Um, Also, a lot of apps are using things called Creative Cloud libraries. Now, Creative Cloud libraries is an internet cloud-based library stored in your Creative Cloud account, and you can share assets that you want to use across your Creative Cloud apps. So you can share colors and styles and graphics that you want to use. So let's say your logo, your company logo, you throw it in a library, and then you can use it in Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, Adobe XD. You can use those Creative Cloud libraries to access the same stuff across applications. So it's one of the ways they allow all these applications to work together and share things. And so that's stored in your Creative Cloud storage, and they're called Creative Cloud libraries to let you use it. Because they are an internet cloud library, they can also be shared with others. So companies can have like a curator for a library with let's say an employee to kind of, or different employees take control over controlling it, but then they can share it with other people. So other people can get the same colors and styles and graphics, and it can be shared across people so that when one person updates it, other people get that update. So that's another collaboration type thing where not just collaborating on files, but sharing assets, not only between apps on your computer and syncing that across your computers, which helps, but also syncing those changes across multiple people's computers so you can share it with others. So those kind of things require internet to work. So while your software is typically installed on your computer, certain features like cloud documents, cloud libraries, those are going to require internet access for those features to work. So all of these things like Creative Cloud libraries, your Adobe Fonts, all of those things, they all sync across your computers when you sign in with your Creative Cloud account. So that's why we have a desktop app. When we sign in, it knows who we are, and it's going to sync the fonts, give us access to install the apps, and that's kind of the hub that they're going through to sync all this stuff. So what do the various different apps do? Because especially if you're getting the all apps plan, sometimes people would say, well, I only want this app, but then I also want another one. So they realize, hey, I really need all of them. But then they get all these apps and they don't even know what they do. So since you're paying for them, what do all of them do? So Photoshop is the industry standard for photo editing and graphic design. I know it's called Photoshop, and that's primarily what it's used for is photo editing. But lots of designers use it for all different types of design. So it is for graphics and photo editing. So you can do it for you can use it for lots of things. You can use it for web, video, print, photography, social media. You can use it for basically just about anything. And so, of course, you can improve your photos, you can retouch, you can color correct, you can put multiple photos together, which is called image compositing. You could do so many things in photography, and you could do very creative things. So it could be very simple, like just adjusting the contrast of a photo, but it could be very elaborate, like putting together pieces of 20 different photos together, and creating this new, amazing, cool thing. You can also create designs in it as well. It's not just a photo editor. So for social media, websites, print designs, for video, you can do all sorts of designs in Photoshop. It's very widely used. Tons of people know Photoshop, and it can do a lot of things. So that's why it's so popular with people. You can even create animated GIFs. So email marketing is huge. And when you open up an email, if you see an animation, animated GIFs are the most reliable way to put an animation in email. So if you've ever seen an animation in email, it's probably an animated GIF. And so for email marketing, also you can put animated GIFs on a lot of social media platforms. So you can create animated GIFs in Photoshop as well. You can also design the graphics and then take them into Adobe After Effects for animating. We'll talk about After Effects in a little bit, but you can do the design in Photoshop, and you could do some animations in Photoshop, but they're meant to be like simple, easy animations, and you export them as an animated GIF. You technically speaking, you can even do video editing, which is really not great at doing, but it's meant for like the photographer that happened to shoot a little teeny bit of video and doesn't want to learn another program and like wants to open up and just do a couple cuts. So it's still best to learn a proper video editing program like Adobe Premiere for that. But like I call Photoshop like the Swiss Army knife of everything. Like you can do a little bit of everything. And it's kind of because so many people knew Photoshop that Adobe was like, well, let's just throw in this other little feature so they don't have to learn another app. But yeah, so you can design your graphics and then take them into After Effects to animate them. And that's a common workflow that people will do. So we have a bunch of Photoshop classes. For each of these apps, we'll link at the bottom to our classes that you can take. You can click over there to check out our variety of classes. Depends on the app as to which classes we offer. In general, for most of our apps that we teach, we'll have like a boot camp, and the boot camp will be typically like around an 18-hour class. And that's going to meet, if it's during the day, it would be 3 days in a row. And if it's a weekend class, that would be 3 weeks, like on Saturdays or Sundays. If it's at night, it would be 3 weeks at night. So let's say like a Monday and a Wednesday night, or a Tuesday and a Thursday night from like 6 to 9 p.m. Keep in mind that we're in New York City, so all of our times are in Eastern time if you're in a different time zone. You can attend all of our classes live online, so you don't have to physically come into Noble Desktop to take our classes. And of course, right now, because of the pandemic, some of the classes are only exclusively done online. But even before the pandemic hit us, we have been doing online classes for years that people from anywhere could come in, and you screen share into the instructor's computer, you watch them doing the demonstrations, you get to do hands-on practice, and it's a great way to learn. We also have, for introductory things, we often have an in-a-day class where if somebody needs just a quick introduction to a program, just to get their feet wet and just get started with a program really quickly, in just 1 6-hour day, you can get started. If you do that at night, it would be 2 nights. So it'd be like a Monday and a Wednesday, or a Tuesday and a Thursday. So we'll do like 3 hours one night and 3 hours another night. And then sometimes we have specialized classes, like for example, with animated GIFs. If you're going to do that, we have that. And we also have one, if you're doing Photoshop for doing web design, we have a specific one just for web designers. So we have a list there. All right. So here's some examples of things you could do. So retouching, for example. And by the way, this is an animated GIF that I created with Photoshop. So all of these animated GIFs, for the most part, were all created with Photoshop. And so there were some parts that we wanted to remove. So we got the before and the after. We remove those. So you can remove unwanted elements. We cover that in the Photoshop in a Day and our Photoshop classes. You can do color correction. So before, it was kind of warmish, reddish color, and we did some color correction, so it got a more neutral color, because those koalas were supposed to be more of a neutral gray, not so reddish and warmish. And so you can color correct. You can change contrast and brightness and color correct, and those things we teach in the Photoshop in a Day and Photoshop classes here. You could do special effects here. So you can do filters. So Photoshop has filters, blurring filters, and all sorts of creative filters. And so you can make it look like the car is moving. So this was just a static still image, but we wanted to make it more dynamic, so it felt like the car was moving. And so you can do special effects. Photoshop is just so versatile. There's so many things that you can do with it. Social media graphics. So you can bring in photos, you can add type, bring in a logo. So digital design, print design, social media, websites, all sorts of things. You can design the graphics. And we actually teach that in Photoshop in a Day and the Photoshop boot camps as well in there. And then animated GIF. We teach this in the animated GIF class, so that you can do simple animated GIFs in Photoshop. In this case, it's kind of like picture, picture, picture. You can also do other style animated GIFs as well. This is just one example of an animated GIF. And so yeah, you can create animated GIFs. Highly used in HTML email marketing. So tons of emails you get have animated images, and they're animated GIFs. So Photoshop, you can do so much with Photoshop. Now, Adobe Illustrator. Adobe Illustrator is for doing what are called vector graphics. Vector graphics are, they're also sometimes called Bezier curves. Photoshop is a pixel-based app, and pixels are little square blocks. And when you zoom in, you see those little square blocks. And that's how we capture photos. So like photos and video, they're made of pixels. But when we draw things like logos, those are created as vector graphics. So a vector graphic is not made of little square pixel blocks. It's made of kind of behind the scenes, it's clean, smooth, mathematically described lines. So if you think about a curve on a chart, that curve is perfectly crisp and clean all the time. No matter how far you zoom in, it's always going to look great. So for things like logos and icons, things you're drawing, things that are graphic kind of looking, Illustrator is the best choice for that, especially logos, because whenever you make a logo, you don't know how big that logo is going to get. And if you make that in Photoshop, you're going to be limited to a specific size that you build it. But in Illustrator, you're not going to be limited. You can blow that logo up to any size you want, and it'll always be crisp and clean and beautiful. So logos especially are designed in Illustrator, but you can also do web graphics, social media graphics. Fashion design is often done in Illustrator because of things like patterns. Patterns are really nice to create in Illustrator. Product packaging, because Illustrator is very detail oriented, a lot of product packaging is done in Illustrator because of the precision and also the graphics that you can do in this. So you can also, like we did in Photoshop, design graphics and then take them into After Effects for animation. So you can design in either Photoshop or Illustrator and then animate them in Adobe After Effects. And of course, we have Adobe Illustrator classes here. Like we had with Photoshop, we have a bootcamp, which is our longer, more thorough class. But if you just want to get started, you could do something like Illustrator in a day just to get started. All of our in a day classes we like to make so that if you just take that, it's a good way to start using the programs. We want you to be able to start using it even if you do the Illustrator in a day. So we mean for those classes to be useful. But of course, if you want to learn more, there's only so much we can cover in a day. So the boot camps are going to be more thorough covering of information. But for those people that just need to get started, just need to know a little bit, you can certainly get started with a lot of these apps, learning just some things in a day. There'll be limitations as far as what you can do, but you'd be amazed actually at how much you can learn in a day to get started using these apps. And so let's continue here. So here's some examples. For example, logos. Especially nowadays, we're starting to think about doing logos that look good across any size screen. So things that would look good, let's say, on a can or bottle, and also look good on Twitter or Facebook in like a little user profile image. But designing those logos, that'd be something you do in Illustrator. Icons for anything, signage, websites, apps, logos, any kind of design, digital, print, doesn't really matter. Icons are used for all sorts of things. These were created in Illustrator. Patterns. I know this is a subtle pattern in here, just a nice little subtle texture here. But patterns are used for all sorts of things. They're used in the backgrounds of websites, apps, print materials. They're used in video, especially fashion design uses patterns, but all sorts of design uses patterns. And patterns don't have to be something that's extremely complex. They could be very simple. It could be just like little teeny dots in the backgrounds, little slashes. They could be subtle patterns that you don't even notice very much. But Illustrator is really good at designing patterns. And if you start to notice these actually as you look across the web or you look across print materials or any kind of design, if you look closely, you'll notice patterns are frequently used in all sorts of design. So Illustrator is good at creating those. Packaging. Packaging is often done in Adobe Illustrator. And actually, in this packaging, guess what? They use patterns. Just happens to be that they use patterns. Not that all packaging has to use patterns in here. Yeah, doing things like the borders and the dotted lines and creating all these graphics, all these things were drawn as vector graphics in Illustrator. Now, moving on to Adobe InDesign. InDesign is kind of like the meeting place of everything type and graphics all together in terms of layouts. So it is primarily focused on print, but it's thought of as a page layout and general design app. So it's amazing with typography. InDesign is like king of typography. It's excellent. It has amazing typography tools, the strongest of all the Adobe apps in terms of typography. It's really good at designing all sorts of things, text, and managing big documents. You can create hundreds or thousands of pages in InDesign. So it's good for doing long documents. Now it can also do short documents as well because it is good for type. But anything that you're combining layouts that use text and graphics together, especially for print, that is its main focus, is print design. InDesign is good for that. It also not only has features for doing very good type and managing type across big documents, it's also got features for multiple pages. So for long documents, books, magazines, brochures, catalogs, any complex big document, InDesign is very good for that. Um, it can do tiny little documents like a business card, because you put type on a business card. It can do that, but it can do anywhere from a business card to a letterhead to a 1,000-page book. It can do any of those things. So it's very versatile. Primarily used for print, but it's also very good at creating PDFs. So if you need to do nice, high quality PDFs that look nice, and you can print the PDFs or you can distribute those PDFs online. InDesign can actually even develop the forms that go into PDFs. So I don't know if you've ever gotten a PDF where you have to fill out a form. InDesign can actually create those forms for those PDFs. So it's in that way, it can do some digital stuff. And technically speaking, it can be used for some digital, but that's not its primary focus. It's primarily a print design program and very good at creating PDFs. So like the other classes, we do have InDesign classes as well. We have an InDesign bootcamp, and we have an InDesign in a day as well. Um, if you want to combine things like Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator together, we have a graphic design certificate. And that certificate program is a bigger certificate program where if you look at what's in there, we're actually going to teach InDesign, Photoshop, Illustrator, all in there, plus graphic design skills. So in the graphic design bootcamp, this is where you start to learn about design concepts. So typography, what makes good looking typography, and color and composition, and actually working on design projects to do a portfolio. So like you'll create a logo in that class. You'll create some social media graphics. Like you'll create some different graphics in there. And so first you have to learn the apps, and then you have to practice those apps and start to build a portfolio. So that's what the graphic design certificate is learning those Adobe apps, those kind of fundamental foundational Adobe apps, and then learning the broader design concepts so that you'll start to know what makes a good design and start to practice those apps in trying to implement good design and starting to build your portfolio. We actually have one of these tracks starting up very soon. So if you're watching this in a timely fashion here, it's actually just this coming Tuesday. I think that is, yeah, Tuesday. There's a night track. So weeknights, Tuesdays and Thursdays from 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern time. Then you can learn graphic design and all of these Adobe apps. So that's coming up very soon. And if you're watching this after that's passed, of course, you can come here and just check out the schedule, and there'll be other ones as well. So we have future ones that come up. So we regularly offer these classes. But for anybody that's watching this soon, that is an opportunity that you can take, that you can start to learn it next week. So different things you can do in InDesign. For example, book covers. You could do the external part of the book, the cover, or the internal part of a book with book interiors. So you can do any of these things. And so here's an example of the page layout. So bringing in the photos, doing the typography, putting on like a page number on every page. Same thing, another book interior here. I like this one because the typography is beautiful. So the previous one is more of a traditional kind of book with kind of columns of text. This one I just liked because it was kind of a more elaborately designed kind of example of a book. So books, brochures, magazines, all these kind of things can be designed with InDesign. And not just the cover of the magazine, but of course, all the stuff that comes in between that magazine, the covers, so all the pages of the magazine. Branding materials, so letterhead, envelope, business card. Those things can also be designed in Illustrator. They often also use Illustrator as well because, for example, the logo is probably made in Illustrator, but then we bring that logo into InDesign and lay it out with typography in InDesign. Could you do that in Illustrator? Yes, Illustrator can do typography as well, but a lot of times InDesign is the kind of the meeting place for the graphics and the text all put together in one place. So often InDesign is the place where you would do that. Um, Social media ads like print ads. So print advertisements. This is for InDesign in particular. You can technically do social media stuff, although it's not the core thing that InDesign does. But I would say just in general, like digital and print marketing materials, they're going to use a variety of things like Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, because, for example, Photoshop might be required to retouch the photo. That photo could be used in print materials. It could also be used in social media. The logo would be designed in Illustrator. The type could be added if it's just simple type like this. That could be added really in any of the programs. That could be added in Photoshop, Illustrator, or InDesign, kind of whichever one you happen to be in. So it's really a lot of these apps kind of go together and work together as you can see why they used to call it the Creative Suite. It was a suite of applications. Now they call it Creative Cloud, but it's still these things go together as a suite of applications. Adobe After Effects. Adobe After Effects is the industry standard app for motion graphics, animation, digitally compositing video, and adding different effects to video. Kind of think of it like Photoshop for video. And so you can animate designs, you can animate logos, create infographics, you can put videos together, remove green screen backgrounds. If you're not familiar with green screening, when you shoot a video in front of a green screen, the green screen can be removed. So that way you can replace it with another video background. So that way, like if you're shooting an actor and you want to put them into a different scene, you just shoot them in front of a green screen, and then you can put in whatever background you want. You can add visual effects to video, titling, all sorts of cool stuff. So you can combine graphics, video, sound, animation, and all this stuff to create compelling videos or animated GIFs. Now, obviously, sound can't be put into an animated GIF. So whether it's an animated GIF or a video, you can put all sorts of stuff together and combine it all. So you can take a logo and put it over top of a video, throw in a soundtrack. You can add some animations in there if you want to animate a logo and put it all together and create a video. That could be for social media. We're seeing a big push into things like After Effects and Premiere for social media. We're seeing a lot of people that are doing marketing that really need video stuff in their design. And so there's all different types of design. There's print design, there's web design, there's digital design. But right now, social media is very big and video is exploding online. So After Effects and Premiere are definitely very popular programs right now that are the demand for them is growing. So you can take a design that you created either inside of After Effects or you imported from Photoshop, Illustrator, Adobe XD, which I haven't talked about yet, but Adobe XD actually has an export to After Effects. That's for doing user interface design, like apps and websites and stuff. So you can take a design from lots of different places, and then you can animate them in After Effects. I would say that a lot of people don't start with After Effects if they're creating purely animations. And they probably are going to use something from another design app in most cases, and then bring them into After Effects to animate them. But you can create stuff in After Effects. And if you're doing video and maybe putting titling on, more of that stuff is created directly in After Effects. So it just depends on what you're doing. So it can be created in there or elsewhere, but the point is that they work together in a lot of ways, that the different apps go hand in hand. So we, of course, teach After Effects. With After Effects, we have a couple levels. We have a level 1 for people to get started with, but it's a big program. I would say of all the Adobe apps, After Effects is the most complex. So we have a level 1, we also have a level 2. If you just want to get started, you can get started in just a day, but just keep in mind, even though you can start to do some animation, After Effects is a big program. So if you just want to do a little bit just to get started, you definitely can get started in a day. But there's a lot of stuff that you can learn with After Effects. It's a very big program, and ideally, After Effects would not be your first program that you would learn. I think it's better to get some experience with Photoshop or Illustrator, at least one of those. And in part because you're probably going to want to create graphics in Photoshop or Illustrator and then bring them into After Effects, but also so you can start to get used to the Adobe interface, you start to get used to some concepts, and that's going to help you to learn things like Photoshop or Illustrator before coming to After Effects to make it easier to learn After Effects. So probably not the best choice of your first Adobe app to start with. Probably better to start with Photoshop and or Illustrator and then come to After Effects. But it's an awesome program. It's very powerful. You could do a lot of stuff with it. And so as an example here, here's a video. There's no sound for this. It's just some visuals. We create this in After Effects level 1. So the spinning wedges there with the color changes, we put those on. And so you'll notice that the text changes. So each go around, the text changes, the color changes. So the video, the photos in the background are actually getting bigger, actually, if you pay attention. So they're kind of growing a little bit bigger as you're watching this. They're like zooming in. So a bunch of things going on there. And then you can do animation like this. We go over this in After Effects level 2. Again, we don't have any sound in this particular one, but you can, of course, add sound. So different style of animation there. And then in this case, this we didn't create this, but this is just an example that I found that was used in an email. This is something that you could create in Adobe After Effects, like all this crazy stuff going on. This is an animated GIF, actually. So while Photoshop is good for creating simple animated GIFs, when you got a lot of stuff like this going on, I don't even know that you could create this in Photoshop in terms of the animation, because Photoshop's animation tools are more simple. They're actually very nice for creating simple animated GIFs. So if I want to create a quick, easy to make animated GIF, Photoshop is great for that. But when I want to do something more complex with a lot more moving pieces or more complex interactions in terms of like the elements working with each other, After Effects is going to be better for the more complex animated GIFs. And of course, if you're doing video, After Effects is going to do video as well. So you can use After Effects for video or animated GIFs. And I say that because with email marketing, animated GIFs are very popular. So After Effects and Photoshop can both be tools that are useful in creating animated GIFs, just depending on the complexity of the animated GIF that you're going to make. Now, Adobe Premiere Pro. Premiere Pro is for doing video editing. So when you're doing video editing, this can be for social media videos, which is one of the most popular growing areas of video. But social media can be YouTube, it can be Facebook, it can be TikTok. All these different social media platforms are growing more and more into video. And so it could be advertisements. It could be for all sorts of marketing purposes, marketing on websites, marketing in social media. So yes, television and movies are a place you can do this, but you don't feel like video editing is just for TVs and movies. There is more online video than there is television and movie video. YouTube has more watch hours than traditional television. So online video is huge and a growing area. So doing video editing is taking video, importing that, taking music, sound effects, voiceover. So if you want to do like an explainer video and you want to take some video and have somebody talking over it, that's voiceover. You could put graphics like a logo or something, and you put them all into a timeline, which Premiere calls a sequence, and you edit out all the unwanted parts and create a great looking video. So let's say you time your video to a soundtrack. and you put some voiceover so that you're seeing a video play with some music in the background and somebody talking over it with the company logo, and you've created a promotional video. So that's why social media and advertising and marketing is using this a lot to do the editing. So really Premiere Pro is about the video editing side of things and taking video. And when you shoot video, there's going to be parts of it that you don't want, and you got to cut out the parts you don't want. Same thing with the audio. If somebody's doing voiceover, they're going to screw up. They're going to make mistakes. You got to cut that stuff out, the parts you don't want. So how do you cut out the parts you want, choose the parts you do want, speed up video, slow down video, put it all together? That's video editing. And so in Premiere Pro, you can do some effects. So like you can remove some green screen backgrounds and stuff. But if you need to do more complex effects, there's a program called After Effects, which I just talked about. So After Effects can do animation and video effects. And so for the more complicated effects, After Effects is better. So Premiere is mainly focused on the video editing and not the special effects side of things. That's what After Effects is meant to do. And we do teach Premiere Pro, of course. We have a Premiere Pro bootcamp, like you've seen with the other courses, and we also have a Premiere Pro in a day. So if you just want to get started, you can take the in a day course. Also, if you ever see this intermediate course, what we do is we take and we break up the bootcamp, which is let's say it's a 3-day training, or if you do it at nights or weekends, it's 3 weeks. But let's just say the 3-day training, it's 3 days. So we break that up into the in a day is the first day, and then the intermediate would be the second and third day. So if you take the in a day and then later come back and take the intermediate, you've gotten the first, and then you've gotten the second and third days, or weeks if you're doing that at nights or weekends. So that way you can still end up getting basically the boot camp. You could just break it up into 2 different parts if you want to. If you know you're going to take the whole thing, go for the boot camp, because typically you'll save money if you do it that way. But you can start out within a day if you just want to get started, and then later you can always come back and do the second and third day with the intermediate class. And so you'll see that for a lot of classes that we have there. All right, let's keep going here. So here's an example of video editing. There is some audio here. See these kind of videos a lot on social media. Got to speed up some video. Cut out some parts that are boring. Speed that up. Cut to the end. Add some titling. Just an example of some video editing. All right, so Adobe XD. I've mentioned this a couple times before. With Adobe XD, this is one of Adobe's newer design programs, and they for new types of design, so digital design, user experiences. So whether it's websites or apps, we needed a new generation design tool. So a lot of people had been using Photoshop or Illustrator to do this type of design, but they were not originally created for this. So Adobe took the opportunity to make a whole new app solely focused on doing digital design, focused on user interfaces or UI design, the user experience of products. So that's called UX design. So websites, apps, or any sort of digital stuff. They want to be the new digital design tool. So it could be doing social media. It could be doing websites. It could be doing apps. They want Adobe XD to be the new digital design tool. And this does compete with other similar apps. There's other apps like Sketch or Figma, and this is like Adobe's version of those apps. And those apps came before Adobe XD. So Adobe XD is kind of a little bit later to the game, but they're very focused on making Adobe XD good very quickly. They're releasing updates every month or two. And so they're very dedicated for Adobe XD really becoming a great new digital design tool. And it's been out for quite a while now, and it's gotten a lot better than the earlier versions. It was very limited in the beginning, but they've come a long way from where they got started. And so, especially in the user experience area, it's very strong on prototyping and putting together like an actual like clickable through prototype, so you can click on things and you can do animation in it, which you can't do in something like Sketch. And it is a very capable app. Now there are things that I like about Sketch. So we teach Sketch and Adobe XD. Figma is another one that's out there that, at least at this moment, we don't currently teach. My two favorite right now are Sketch and Adobe XD. And there's some pros and cons. I like Sketch for certain things, and there's things I like about Adobe XD. To be honest, if I could merge the two together, I'd have an amazing app. But it depends. There's pros and cons for each. But if you're getting Creative Cloud, then you get Adobe XD as part of the Creative Cloud. So for a lot of people that are Adobe users, they're going to go with Adobe XD because they get it as part of the Creative Cloud. And Sketch is a Mac-only app. Now, most designers do use Mac, but not all designers do. And Adobe XD works on Mac and PC, which Sketch only works on Mac. So now Adobe XD is unique. They actually have a completely free plan, but you don't get everything in the app. There are limitations. So they have some features which are labeled premium features. And if you pay for Adobe XD, which is US dollars, $10 a month at the moment, that will remove those limitations. So you get all the premium features for free. And so yes, you can get started with Adobe XD for free. You get quite a bit of what the app has to offer, but there are limitations. The free plan is mainly there so that people can kind of get started, get used to the app. It's kind of like an unlimited free trial in a way that you can actually just keep using, but there's certain limitations that then once you kind of want to start doing some pro work, you're going to run into some of those limitations and you're going to want to pay for a plan. So you remove those limitations. But most Adobe apps don't have this kind of free plan. The Creative Cloud does have a 7-day free trial. It used to be 30 days. It's only 7 days now, which to be honest is really short. Like to try all these apps in just 7 days, that's not long at all. But this is not a trial. This is a completely free plan, and what's included in the free plan you can use for as long as you want. But there will be some premium features that you don't get access to everything that Adobe has to offer with Adobe XD. So you got to pay to get all of the features of Adobe XD. And you can animate directly within Adobe XD, but it's not a full-fledged animation program. Like they have some animation features, but if you run into the limitations of what XD does, you can just export over to After Effects, and then you can create even more complex animations in After Effects. So they just have an export to After Effects to go further if you need. And we have Adobe XD classes as well. We have a boot camp, which is a 2-day class, or if you take it on nights or weekends or something, it would be 2 weeks. And then we have it in a day if you just want to do the in a day. So in this case, when we have like an in a day in advance, this would be like the first day and the second day. And the boot camp is just both days put together. So here's an example of like a clickable prototype. So you can mock up, this could be a website, it could be an app, and you mock up your 2 different pages within it. And you can make a working prototype. So you can test it on users and see if it works well, find out any issues, redesign it, update it before you have to actually build the website. And the idea would be that you design and plan the website or the app. And then once you've designed the user experience of it, the user interface of how it looks, then you can hand it off to a developer. There's a developer handoff that you can do, and then they can actually build the website or app from your design. So the designs that you build, they can be given to users for testing. They can be shown to the client or whoever is developing the app. You can show it to them, so you can show the client. You can get approval and make sure that they like it, and you can work with developers when you're all done. So that is Adobe XD. Now, Adobe Lightroom. Lightroom, there's actually 2 versions of Lightroom. Lightroom Classic and then the new Lightroom. Now, Lightroom Classic is my preferred one. It's what a lot of pro photographers use. Lightroom Classic is the original Lightroom app. It was originally just called Adobe Lightroom, and then they renamed it. So Lightroom, just plain old Lightroom, that's a newer, more simplified app. And the key difference is that it is simpler. It doesn't have all the features of Lightroom Classic, but it requires all your photos to be stored online, which, if you like all of your stuff available online so you can access it across all your devices, for some people, they think that that's a good thing. For a lot of pro photographers that have terabytes upon terabytes of photos, storing everything online and having to pay for all that online storage is not something that they want to do. So if you're okay, if you like the idea of storing it all online, you can use the new Lightroom app. But just keep in mind that it is a newer app, and it is a bit more of a simplified app. It does not have all of the features that Lightroom Classic does. And so Lightroom Classic, it's been around for longer, it's more fully developed, and it allows you to store your files locally. So this is what I like to use. This is what we teach at Noble Desktop. And so Lightroom Classic works with photos that are stored locally on your computer. Now, you can sync photos that you want to sync to the Lightroom mobile app. So there is like a cloud sync that you can do. It's not storing all of your originals online, but it's storing like kind of like previews in a way that you can see, that you can seal. Like on my iPhone, for example, I can go to the Lightroom mobile app on my iPhone, or if I had an iPad or Android, you can access it there too. And I can see photos that I choose to put into that app. And actually, I can even like I can rank them, I can rate them, I can even do some edits on those, and those edits will sync back to the Lightroom Classic that's on my desktop. It doesn't put everything in there. You choose what you want to put in there. So your photos are stored locally, and then you can choose which ones you want to be able to see in the mobile app. So it's not like the stuff that's in Lightroom Classic can't be viewed on your phone. It can. It's just not that everything is forced to be stored online like the Lightroom app does. So we teach Lightroom Classic. That's what we teach, and that's what I use, and that's what I prefer. So we teach Lightroom Classic. We just have one Lightroom Classic class. We don't have multiple ones. So in Lightroom Classic, for example, you've got different tabs. So in the library tab here, you can organize your photos. So you can create folders and go through, and you can rate and rank all your photos. You can put keywords on them so you can find them later on. So you can organize them. So basically you're going to import, you're going to organize, you're going to rank to see like which ones you like more than others. So you can put star ratings on them. You can add keywords for searches and do all that to organize a photo library of all your stuff. And then you can also, in the develop module, you can develop your photos. So you can adjust contrast and color, and you can crop, and you can sharpen, and do a bunch of things like you would also potentially be able to do in Photoshop as well. But the idea of Lightroom is that in one integrated app, you can manage, you can download, manage, organize, and develop all of your photos all in a single app. So when you're going to batch process a bunch of photos from a photo shoot, you want to go through and you want to delete all the bad ones. Maybe a bunch of them are too dark, so you want to select them all and just lighten them all up at the same time. Lightroom is good for the management and development of a bunch of photos. And it can do quite a lot. Over the years, they've really developed a lot of features. So some things that we used to have to go to Photoshop for before, you can now do directly in Lightroom. It's very, very capable, especially if you want to do things like brightness, contrast, color, even removing some elements. There's even some retouching tools to get rid of some things. All of it's done non-destructively, which means if you ever want to go back and change your mind, you can just undo the stuff whenever you want, completely non-destructive. That's great. When do you make the decision to jump over to Photoshop? When you want to do more creative stuff, when you want to start compositing images together, when you want to start taking something from one photo and another and putting them together, when you want to do creative things, when you want to put type on things. Lightroom is focused on just the general photography of things. It's not meant for doing design. It's not meant for doing the creative things. It doesn't have the filters that Photoshop has. So Photoshop is more creative and compositing stuff. And Lightroom is to be honest, for a lot of photographers, it's what they want to use because they just want to do simple edits. But if you want to be more creative, then Photoshop is good because you can be more creative and do more stuff in Photoshop. But again, they go well together. I use both Lightroom and I use Photoshop. Just depends on what I want to do. I'm going to import my photos into Lightroom. I'm going to organize them. I'm going to do some edits here. And then when I hit a wall where I can't do something in Lightroom, I'll go over to Photoshop and do it there. And they do have the mobile app, so you can see here you can edit, you can rate and review, you can put keywords on there, you can see the info on your photos. So this is from my Lightroom Classic desktop app. I could sync my chosen photos to see them in the Lightroom app, and so you can actually still see the photos. They're not the original photo in terms of like the actual file. This is like a preview that's been uploaded so I can see it. My original photo still lives on my desktop. But if I go in and I do some like tweaking, if I go to edit, those edits that I make on mobile do sync back to my desktop. But to export like the highest quality original, I would have to come back to my desktop to be able to export the highest quality original that I want. So hopefully you've been able to see with all of these different apps that they're really, for any sort of thing creative, there's an app for it, basically. Those are just some of the apps. There are a few more, like there's Audition for doing audio stuff, but those are the primary apps that I think people are most interested in. There are 20 something plus apps that they have, but those are the most popular ones from my experience. So just in general, if you're in the design industry, if you're creative, Creative Cloud is just a must-have. Whether you're a designer, a photographer, a marketer, a videographer, you're going to want some app that the Creative Cloud has to offer. I can't imagine doing all of my creative work without using Creative Cloud. I've been using Adobe software for over 20 years. So I've been using it for a long time. It's gone over a lot of change. I've seen new apps come, but I just can't imagine doing my professional work without doing it in the creative industry. So what are ways that you can learn? I know I've talked about some individual classes here and there throughout the presentation tonight, but want to give you some free and paid options here. So we have free seminars, we have paid individual classes, and more complete certificates. So free seminars, like those of you who are attending this live, this is a free seminar. Anybody watching the recording, this is a free seminar that you're watching. We do give free seminars in these apps. And most of these free seminars we give are about 1 to 2 hours for these things. And we've given free seminars in the past, and actually in this January, we're actually going to be giving free seminars for like Illustrator, InDesign, Photoshop. So you might be able to find recordings on our website, on our YouTube channel, which I'm going to link to in just a moment for some of them. And then we continually post new ones. So I'll give a link to that YouTube channel in just a moment. So you can do free seminars to get started. We also have classes, which are hands-on with a live instructor. You screen share into the instructor's computer, you hear them talking, you see what they're showing. We have workbooks that come with those classes. So you get materials that you can leave the class with and keep with you, so you can go back and practice the things that you learned in the class. So if you want to get up and running with an app quickly, you can do something as quick as like an in-a-day class, or you can do the longer boot camps. But the idea is the free seminars are kind of the shortest. They're like 1 or 2 hours and they're free. The classes are anywhere from like 6 hours for a 1 day or 18 hours for like a 3 day. So depending on the app, it's anywhere from 1 to 3 days if you're doing it during the day. If you do it at night or on the weekends, it's the 1 to 3 weeks instead of days. And then if you want to do something more complete, we have bigger certificate programs. So when you want to learn multiple apps, when you want to combine things like design concepts, and you want to more so focus on an area of design, not just on a single app, those are our certificate programs. So sometimes people want to learn just an app. They're like, I just want to learn After Effects, or I just want to learn just Photoshop. That's fine. We have a class for that. But if you want to learn web design, or if you want to learn graphic design, then we have a certificate program which combines multiple individual classes into a bigger certificate program. Motion design, if you want to do video stuff. So you'll learn the apps that are required, and a lot of them also have like design concepts that are in there. So as far as links, let's go through these. So free seminars, we have our YouTube channel, and check out our YouTube channel. We're always posting new stuff on there, so you can go check it out. For example, here we have a Creative Cloud playlist, so you can just check out things. So we've got intro seminars for Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, Adobe XD. Some of these were streamed a few years ago as of this recording, but actually this month we're going to do them again. They actually, for the most part, most of these still apply. Adobe XD is getting a little bit older. That's why we want to redo that, because some things have changed in that. But even these still apply today, because introductory things, they focus on the core concepts, and the core concepts of Photoshop and Illustrator and InDesign. To be honest, they don't really change over the years. The same core concepts still apply from 3 years ago till today. But depending on when you're watching this, we might have new versions up there already. And if you're watching this in the near future, check out our website for a list of free seminars on nobledesktop.com. If you go over into the menu, we have a list of free seminars, and we actually have some coming up here: Intro to InDesign, Photoshop, and Illustrator. So if you want to watch them live, you can sign up for those if you catch it in time. If not, those will be posted on our YouTube channel once we're done with those. So definitely check out our free seminars. We have ones on Adobe. We also have a bunch of other stuff too. So that's one place. And if you subscribe on YouTube, that way, in case you didn't get notifications that we were going to offer a free seminar, if you subscribe on YouTube, you'll be notified when we post new videos. So at least you'll see like, oh, they posted such and such a video. So if you click on this link, then it'll go right in and say, hey, do you want to subscribe? And you can subscribe. And that way you'll get notifications as we post new videos. If you want to get notification of those free seminars so you can attend them live as we're offering them, then you might want to subscribe to our e-news. And that's where we announce things like upcoming seminars, classes, special offers, all sorts of stuff. So we send out our emails there. We don't blast you with a ton of emails. It's not like we're emailing you every day, and you can always unsubscribe. But if you subscribe to our e-news, then you'll get notifications of things like upcoming free seminars, and then you can attend live when we're giving it to you. But then we do record it and post it on YouTube when we're all done. So that's our free seminars. So those are good ways to get started, start to learn an app, learn some of the fundamentals. Then stepping up from there into a bigger class, we have our individual Creative Cloud app classes. So we have classes on Photoshop and Illustrator and InDesign, all these things that I talked about tonight. Individual classes, I've already covered those before. So we have anything from in-a-day classes through boot camps. Some things like After Effects will have a level 1 as well as a level 2, because there's just more stuff than we can cover in a single class. So hopefully we have something that's right for the amount of information that you want to learn, whether it's just a little bit to get started with an in-a-day class, or if you want to learn it more thoroughly, jump right into that boot camp where you can learn it more thoroughly. And that's good if you want to learn a specific app. But if you want more complete learning, if you want to learn an area of design, things like the graphic design certificate, that's going to, as I said before, let's go to the syllabus here. That's going to go through InDesign, Photoshop, Illustrator, for example. And so you'll not only learn those apps, but then you're also going to combine in a graphic design bootcamp where you learn about those design concepts. So you'll start to build your portfolio, learn about what makes good design, and do projects such as logos and stuff. And we actually have one of those coming up, like I said, next week. So starting next Tuesday night and meeting on the nights here coming up. But if you missed that one, just check out our schedule, and we're always posting new ones. Sometimes we do them at nights, sometimes we do them during the weekdays, sometimes Saturdays or Sundays. So just check the schedule to see at that moment what we are currently offering, and see when you can take it, what works for your schedule. And then, for example, the visual design certificate. So if you want to learn to design websites, applications, that type of stuff, so digital stuff, in this one we cover Adobe Photoshop, we cover Adobe Illustrator, and Adobe XD. Now we also teach Sketch, which is Sketch's Adobe XD competitor. Right now in the out there in the industry, people are sometimes using Sketch, sometimes using Adobe XD. So we like teaching people both, so you can pick and choose which one you like best. And if you're going out there looking for work, that you will be empowered to know both of them. So regardless of which one a company's using, you'll know both of them, so you can use whichever one the company you end up getting hired from is using. We have the graphic design bootcamp, which is the design fundamentals. And then the visual design bootcamp, that focuses specifically on website design. So if you want to learn to design websites, responsive websites that look good on mobile phones, tablets, and desktops, this focuses purely on websites, because the graphic design bootcamp is a general design bootcamp. So it works on all different types of design. So logos, and it could be print design, like a magazine ad. It could be a social media graphic. So it's general design. It's not specifically just for web design. So the visual design is specifically for web design in particular. So that's our visual design certificate. With motion graphics, this is motion graphics like animation and video editing. In this course, in this certificate program, we teach Premiere Pro, both levels of Adobe After Effects, and then we tie it all together with a motion graphics portfolio development class. And this is where you take the principles of motion graphics and video editing and you put them together into portfolio type projects, so that you can start to build a portfolio of video editing and animation. And so that's motion graphics if you want to get into that. And then we finally have a link to all of our different design courses, just in case you want to see all of them. And if you just want to kind of see what's coming up on our website, whenever you come to our website, if you click on the schedule, if you just want to see things that are coming up soon, you can filter by maybe the topic that you're interested in, like for example, graphic design, and then you can see like what's coming up soon. If it's a time-based kind of thing that you're looking at, like, oh, okay, graphic design certificate starting up, like, oh, InDesign is starting up soon. If you're looking for a particular class, of course, you can look through the menus and try to find the particular class you're looking for, like, oh, I want InDesign. And we do have a search here. So if you want to click in the search and start typing like InDesign, if you have a specific need, this will find your course on the specific course that you're looking for. All right. So hopefully this has shown what you can do with Creative Cloud, explained what these different apps are and maybe why you want to learn some of those, and given you some things that you can use to further learn from the free seminars that we offer, or any of the classes or certificates. Hopefully these are ways that you can get started using the Creative Cloud. I hope this has been useful for you, and that you've enjoyed the seminar. So thank you for attending, and hope to see you in a future seminar.